Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. I'm here in my glass greenhouse, or it's now a rainforest. On the weekend we installed the watering and misting system, and yesterday I got an automatic timer to control the water. Here is a look at the unit I bought. It's a Woods heavy-duty outdoor programmable timer. It is due to automatically come on in 4 minutes. I'll show you the program here. So the number one setting, I have it coming on at 7 in the morning for 1 minute, then it turns off. Next I have it coming on at 9 a.m. for 1 minute and it turns off. Then 11 a.m. for 1 minute and it turns off. Then at noon for 1 minute. Then at 1 o'clock for 1 minute. So in the afternoon I have it coming on every hour. At 2, 3, 4. And then I jump to 6 o'clock for 1 minute, 8 o'clock for 1 minute, and 10 o'clock for 1 minute. And that's it. So it comes on in the morning right till it's dark out. 1 minute at a time, and every 2 hours normally, and then in the afternoon every hour. So that, I'm going to try it out and see how it does at this setting. I also have to check my water consumption. If it's too much, if it uses too much water every day, then I'll back it off. So instead of coming on every 2 hours, maybe every 3 hours, and instead of every hour, maybe every hour and a half or something like that. I want it so I could go maybe 2 days with this bucket of water, so it doesn't drain it each day. So if I go away overnight or something, the system will run for 2 days without me worrying about it. So it's an automatic watering system. So far it's working really well. It's saturating everything in here. The humidity level is just sky high now. It's incredible. The moss is growing at a rate that I haven't seen. It's just incredible. Everything's greening up. Yeah, it's looking really, really good in here. Here's a view of the greenhouse. So I have less than 30 seconds to go before it automatically turns on. So I'm at 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There it goes. Just incredible. So it runs for 1 minute. Everything in here gets thoroughly soaked. It doesn't spray much in the middle area here, so you can be in the greenhouse, and if it comes on, you don't get wet. And I've got a few of my succulent trees in the middle here drying out. We got rain for the last, I think 3 days in a row. So yeah, everything outside was getting really soaked, so I brought some of my succulents in. I didn't want them getting too wet. So yeah, it's doing a really, really good job. The humidity just stays really high in here. The temperature outside is fairly cool, so the upper vents aren't opening up. So it really helps to keep the humidity in here. There, it just turned off. So that was 1 minute of watering. The water level didn't drop a whole lot. I think I'm going to be fine for water usage at the current program for today. I think I'll have enough water to do 2 days, but we'll check in at the end of the day and see how it's doing. So far, everything is getting watered really, really nicely. I haven't seen any pots drying out or anything. There's always enough spray that it kind of sprays under the leaves and drips down on the trunks. Some of the ones in the back corner are staying a little drier, but they still get enough water to keep the plants happy. So I could still do a little more, playing around with nozzles and positions. I think I need one more nozzle in this area over here. I think that would help that back corner at least. All the trees that are on the floor get all the drips from the benches, and you can see the ground is just soaked, and the cement patio stones here are just soaked. So I don't think there's any problems. I have a little toad that lives in my one planting here, and it comes out when it rains and hops around. It looks very happy. I think the toad, I'm not sure how it got in here, but it eats a lot of insects. I used to have crickets in here, and the toad has eaten all the crickets, and Any bugs that fly in here, the toad eats all those too. So it's kind of nice to have one in your greenhouse. The misting system will come on in another hour for another minute of watering. I haven't tested it yet on a sunny day, so I don't know how fast the trees will dry out on kind of a warmer sunny day, but that'll be interesting. I'll test it in future when the weather gets a little nicer. It is 17 days before the Toronto Bonsai Society's spring show and sale, so I think I better have a look around on the benches and pick out 1 or 2 trees to put in the Toronto show. After the Toronto show, the Kitchener-Waterloo Bonsai Society has their fall show, and it's 2 weeks after the Toronto one. I'm going to wander around and have a look at the trees on the benches now and pick out 1 or 2 trees for the Toronto show. Over on this bench, I have my asparagus fern. I could prune that up, and I think it would look very interesting. It would be something that most people have never seen before, an asparagus fern that looks like a bonsai. That's a possibility. You know, it also could probably do with a repot. You can see how the soil is lifted out of the pot here. It's possible I could do it now, repot it, put it in the greenhouse. But I don't know. I don't know if the Toronto Bonsai Society is ready for an asparagus fern as something in their show, even though it looks pretty cool when it's all pruned up. I'm looking at the benches. I don't think anything here is ready. Nothing ready on these benches. On these benches, there's nothing ready either. My pine isn't ready. My spruce isn't ready. These are all trees in development. So let's go down here, have a look at the end benches. So again, everything here is pretty well in development. Even my forest here, which you can see the larch are starting to turn colors. That yellow against the green backdrop will look pretty cool someday. Over in this bench, I've got my forests. My larch forest isn't ready because I pruned the apex off, and I've got to wait until the tip of it either straightens out more, or I can rotate the tree kind of more of this view so it looks better for the show. I think I also need to reduce these trees, getting a tighter triangular shape to them. But, you know, someday that could be in the Toronto show. My cedar forest here is a possibility. I think I've pruned it. I haven't done a lot of landscape work yet, but and I still need to clean the trees up. Maybe position some of the trees a little more vertical. But this one would look good in the show. I think it's something fairly unique. I mean, it's a forest that will continue to get better in the future, but I think it would make a nice display anyway. It'd be interesting. Beside it, I have my cedar forest. And this also, I was thinking of this possibly for the show. I have that nice stand that Matt made that looks good with it. I pruned it in advance, so the trees have grown a bit since I pruned it. So, you know, all the tips aren't cut off. They have fresh growth on them. So it looks quite nice. I've got the lichen on the trunk, which looks kind of cool too. Gives it that ancient look. And yeah, it's in a nice clay pot, so it's a good possibility for the Toronto show, this one. My Sarissa over here was in the Toronto Spring show, and I'm going to wait a while. It does need pruning. I'll definitely put this in the KW show, and then maybe again in spring or fall of next year, I'll put it in the Toronto show once again. Trying to improve my display, improve the tree, just, you know, bring it up a level if I can. My root over rock Scots Pine continues to get better. It's looking pretty cool right now. However, it still needs more work in the canopy and that. So that's another possibility for the future someday. There's not very much in the polyhouse that's kind of show worthy. You know, maybe my crown of thorns, just because it's got flowers on it here, looks quite nice. It would look pretty cool in a show. But it's not a strong enough tree or plant to stand on its own. It
it's sort of, what's the word? It's in between a nursery stock and a bonsai. I think it needs more years to thicken the trunk up, develop the branches more. I think it's, getting closer every year, but right now, I think it's the kind of tree where people look at it and go, oh, that's nice, but not all that special yet. Hopefully in the future. So that just leaves the glass greenhouse for show trees. Let's go in. I don't know how badly. Oh, there's my little toad down there. I'll try and show you him. Or her. I don't know. Oh, it's just hopped away. It's in there. It's just hopped away. So in here, I repotted my root over temple ficus here with the possibility of that going in the show. And I think it might be ready. I would have liked a little more growth out front here. There are some shoots developing, so 17 days, it might come out. It might fill this front section out as long as we get some good sunny days in here. I think that would look good in the show. So that's definitely one I will put in the show, or at least a strong possibility anyway. I was hoping to put the yucca forest in the show. I don't think the main tree has leafed out enough. You can see most of the trees have leafed out quite nicely. The main tree not quite so much, which is unfortunate, but I mean, it's still possible. It would definitely be a unique forest planting in the show. I'm worried, if I leave it grow over winter, maybe it'll get too bushy on top. Probably not, but that might be another one for the spring Toronto show instead of, this upcoming fall one. I've got my desert rose forest. This is another one that could go in the show. It would take a lot of cleanup on the landscape, but the trees have leafed out. It's not looking real lush. It doesn't have flowers or anything on them, but I think it's interesting enough that I think people would like it in the show, or it would look good in the show. Another possibility is my Chinese penjing landscape here. The moss has certainly grown in since the last pruning. The trees are starting to fill out. If you see them up here, all the new growth is just coming in on them now. So I think in 17 days, I think they'll have filled out the canopies with enough foliage that it'll look quite miniature and quite realistic. So that is another strong contender that could go in the Toronto show. And it's not that the trees are so well developed that, I think it should go in the show. Just that it's something unusual. I've never seen a landscape like this in the Toronto show. So it would also need a lot of cleanup work in the landscape to get it all finished. I need to do my gardening, get that all cleaned up. Maybe add some other variety of plants. I did get that creeping thyme. I could have a section of that. And, find some other mosses, some different colored mosses or different ground cover plants to make the whole garden area look more realistic and more interesting. So that is another strong contender for the Toronto show. Another strong contender for the Toronto show is my Frankenficus or my Fusion ficus. It has a really cool, awesome trunk and root base to it. The canopy is starting to fill in quite nicely. It'll keep getting better every year, this planting, but sometimes, as I said, maybe it's nice to put it in the show, get some feedback on it, and, work towards those goals in the future. It gives you a chance to set up the display, the accent plants, stand back and have a look at the tree in the context of other bonsais in the show, and kind of, take a fresh look at it and come up with future goals and styling ideas and display ideas. So that could be another one that goes in the show. My Portulacaria afroforest, that is another possibility. It needs a pruning right now, but 17 days is enough time. If I did prune it now, I would probably get some fresh growth coming in. It's certainly dense enough in the canopy that if I pruned it back, it would look pretty good for the show. I'd have to dress the soil surface up with the desert sand, do a lot of fixing, and maybe even get it in a better pot. This is a mica pot it's in, so I'd need a clay pot. So I could either like slip pot it or do a full repot on the trees. Trees like my very first bonsai, my Ficus microcarpa here, they will be show ready someday, but not yet. I could maybe put these in the KW show, but I've got a lot of development work to go on these trees. You know, they look fine, but I want to try and get those ribbon roots and just generally improve the tree. So I did a lot of pruning on it this year, cutting it back to the main structural branches. You can see it's growing in really thick now, which is good. But it needs maybe a few more prunings, a bit more development before it's ready for the Toronto show. My Ficus religiosa here, if this were to go in the show, I would have to defoliate it, and I don't think it's quite ready yet. This year I got all these nice cascading branches. It's always been growing upright, and now I'm starting to get trailing branches, the weight of the branches and that, and I think it's, you know, a few years away from being a show tree. I think it's still being developed. Someday, I hope it'll be a beautiful show tree. My Schefflera here is also in a development stage. It's in a large plastic pot. I'm developing aerial roots, expanding the canopy wider. I've let it grow this year. I need to, before the show, I would have to defoliate it, prune it, and then have the leaves growing in for the show. So that one is another future tree for the Toronto show, but not yet. My other Ficus microcarpa, the fancy one here, it's looking pretty good. The canopy's a little sparse on it. I did a lot of structural pruning to this one too. My goal is to eventually probably hard prune these upper branches back and develop a finer upper structure on it. But that'll be coming in the future. Right now I'm kind of keeping it good looking, developing it slowly. But yeah, I can see a big cutback coming in the future, developing a whole new crop of finer branches, getting more taper in the branches. They're okay, these branches, but they're a little long and leggy without much taper or movement. But that'll be for the future. My $50 bonsai challenge here, if you see it in here, it's looking pretty good. That is a tree that could go in the Toronto show. But again, I don't know if it's strong enough to go in the show by itself. It could. If I put it on a stand, it would look quite nice, I think. But I think it's probably too big to be like an accent planting or a 2-point display or a 3-point display. It's just, yeah, I think it would have to go in by itself, and it's looking quite nice. That's a possibility. Definitely for the KW show. Anything else in here? That ficus back there isn't ready. My Schefflera is not ready. The ficus plane, the microcarpa plane, is developing a beautiful weeping canopy on it. That'll be continuing to develop over the years, but not show ready yet. My ficus microcarpa, my ginseng ficus that I put in the Toronto show in spring, you can see all the moss growing up the trunk to encourage aerial roots to form. Lots of new fine branches growing in. I gave it quite a pruning last time, back to the basic structure, and it looks better all the time. Every time I work on it, it continues to improve. So I'm going to develop it further, and then someday it will return to the Toronto show when I have the canopy looking really, really awesome. I have lots of trees in development that will be future show trees. They've just got to develop more. It takes more years, more refinement, and they'll be ready for shows someday. So, that's future goal, is to get all your trees kind of
getting towards show-ready trees. I'm looking at the trees now. So the sprinkler system came on half an hour ago, and you can see the trunks of the trees are still wet. Now, it's not a sunny day out. It's a very cloudy day, and the vents are closed in the greenhouse, keeping all the humidity in here. But so far, you know, the trunks of the trees aren't drying out. They're staying wet, which is good for aerial roots. My work today involves a tree that you can see in the background, my 60th birthday present, the Scots Pine. Right now it has that big long deadwood branch off it. So today I'm going to shorten that branch and do some deadwood work on it. The reason I want to get it shortened before the winter is that right now that big long branch takes up a lot of room. So I've got to fit it in the greenhouse. So I've got to make the tree more compact so it kind of fits in there neatly with all the other trees. Here's a look at that first branch I'm talking about, this big long branch that comes all the way out to here, deadwood. So I want to shorten it to about here and carve the end of it so it looks like a natural branch is broken off there on the tree and the remains of the branch are still attached. I have another branch up here, a long straight one without any taper or movement. Lots of foliage out at the tip here that I also want to cut back and create into deadwood. On this tree I have kind of whorls established, which is, you know, how pines grow in nature. So I don't want two living branches opposite each other. So I prefer this one to be deadwood and then grow this upper canopy out to kind of fill in this space here. I don't think I need this branch. Here comes the hard part now, moving the tree from its current position onto the bench. It's been raining for the last few days, so the soil is very wet. It's going to be a very heavy tree. So here I go. It's not too bad. Quite easy to manage, actually. Here's a look at the tree on the bench. So I did a Photoshop mock-up of reducing these two branches back. I'll show you a photograph of that. From that photograph, I have a good idea of what I want to do with the branches now. So first thing I've got to do is get out the saw and cut them off to the right length. I've got my folding saw that was sent to me by Tom from the YouTube channel Grow and Clip Bonsai for Seniors. Should work quite well in removing these long branches. So here I go. I'm thinking of shortening the branch to right about here. I'm going to see how it looks at that length. So here I go. Right to here. I'm just going to saw it off square and then I'll do the deadwood work. So here I go, cutting through that branch. I should also be able to get a good idea of how old this tree is from these growth rings. There I go. That branch is now removed. All right, I'm looking at the growth rings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 18 or 19 is approximately what I count. So, yeah. That's what I figured. This tree is about, 20 years old. So there's my cut. Just round. So now I've got to do the carving work. I'm going to take off that branch up top too. And I want this one just slightly shorter than this deadwood. So I think somewhere about here. So here I go on that. And this is a live branch. There I go. That's off. There's a look at the tree now. So you can see, how I'm a little long here.
I've got to make it more compact, and also here, bring out that trunk thickness more. Right now it's kind of almost an umbrella canopy. It's a little wide and spreading for the tree, so that's got to be brought back in more compact. So yeah, goals to work towards in the future. So now I'm going to begin the deadwood work on these sawed-off branches, making them look a little more natural. I'm not going to do any carving. I'm going to try to do it all with pulling the wood with pliers. So I'm hoping that it looks really natural in the end. I've got the pliers out and the branch splitters. So I'm hoping with these two tools I can get some pretty good looking deadwood on this tree. So here I go. All right, I'm going to try just kind of grabbing the bottom. So I want, on my photograph I had the long part on the top and then kind of broken away underneath, kind of making it a point on top and recess underneath. I'm going to see how easy that is to do. It may be very difficult, but we'll see. Yeah, I think I'm going to need a bit of work here with the branch splitters. I think, I'll have to come in and kind of separate sections like that, then pull it back if it's possible. I don't know how old this deadwood is. Here I go. Yeah, that pulled back nicely. Like that. So I'm just grabbing that split wood and peeling it back, and you can kind of roll it around on the pliers to peel it back like that, and then it just breaks off. So I should get a pretty good looking natural break underneath the branch here. And I would recommend always using this method. Never carve the deadwood in, because you'll be carving against the grain of the wood. You want to have a natural wood grain that matches your contour. So you don't want to carve anything in here that is against the wood grain. Otherwise, as it ages, it starts to look really artificial. Whereas this will always look like a natural break, because it basically is. It's just following the grain like a break would when it splits off. So I'm going to split a little more off down here. Grab the branch splitters and come in like that, and kind of separate it a bit like that. And this also goes with the natural grain. Come in, grab that piece like that, and pull it back, roll it back like that, and you just work away at it until you get a good looking natural break on your tree. Don't rush it, just take your time. Here's a look at the part I've carved underneath, and you can see it looks really natural and nice. It's not very big yet. I'll have to expand it, but it's a good start. So the further I can pull these wood grains back, the better. So the break kind of goes right back and creates a bit of taper in this branch, so it doesn't look like a big stub. You don't want it too pointy, but it broke off. Yeah, some of these are peeling back quite nicely. So I've been thinking about, the thickness of the branch here. It's very thick at the base. I could peel it, back, kind of making this a little thinner is a possibility, because I think it is the thickest branch in the whole tree. And it might look a little funny, this thickness, compared to all the other branches. So I might want to take it back underneath, kind of reducing the overall mass of the branch. And that'll just be a judgment call at the end to see, I'll step back, have a look at it. If it looks too heavy, then I'll take some more off. here's what it's looking like so far. So the idea is to, look like the branch tore off. Thinking it's pretty good. I think a little more reduction here, maybe a little more off the bottom here, and I think getting pretty close. Here is a look at the branch now. So I'm hoping it looks fairly convincing as a branch that broke off in a storm. I think it looks good. So the next one I want to do is the one I cut off here. Just sap oozing out the end. So I'll just, do a little bit of work on the tip of that one too. Here's a look at the two branches, the lower one and the upper one. You can see it. Yeah, I think that looks pretty natural. That one could be maybe fixed up a bit more. But it's not too bad. Just needs a little more to get this part off. Yeah, something like that. Looks pretty good. So that is my Deadwood work for today on the 60th birthday pine. Wow. Bit of a change for the tree. Yeah, I can see, a lot of these branches will have to be made more compact. But what an awesome tree. I just love it. I think it looks so cool. Here's an overall look at the tree now. Wow, it's looking better. I've got big plans for this tree. I think it's going to be a really, really nice tree in the future.
The misting system in the greenhouse will be coming on in another 5 minutes, so I'm going to stay in the greenhouse and watch it because I love seeing everything get misted like that. It's really cool. The water in the barrel here has been holding out quite well. I've done 7 cycles of misting this morning, and I've got 4 more to go to the end of the day. So the water's definitely lasting quite well. So I'm happy. I'm not going to change the program. The next test will be in the sunshine. When it warms up and we get a sunny day, I'll see how everything does. At the moment, you can see this trunk, after an hour, has stayed wet. It was nice to get that Deadwood work done on my birthday pine before the winter to get the tree a little more compact. I was happy with the Deadwood work. I think it turned out quite nice and I think it looks quite natural. So that's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.